Good morning, everyone. We begin with chanting universal well-being. May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all beings release from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their action, and inherit its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and result will be their home. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts they will be the heirs. I want to continue the readings from biography of Master Shuyun, Venerable Master Empty Cloud. I finish in his 103rd year, is 1942-43, and is a note written by Sen Xielu, Xun editor. After the fall of Canton to the Japanese, the provincial wartime capital was set up at Zhejiang, and high-ranking military leaders frequently came to the Nanhua monastery. The Japanese intelligence learned that the temple was used as a meeting place for Chinese officials. In the 7th month, when a larger number gathered there, 8 enemy bombers came in and circled over it. The master knew of their intention and ordered the monks to return to their dormitories. After all, the guests had taken refuge in the hall of the 6th patriarch. The master went to the main hall, where he burned incense and sat in meditation. A plane dived, dropping a large bomb, which fell in the grove on the river bank outside the monastery without causing damage. The bombers returned and circled over it, when suddenly 2 of them collided and crashed to the ground at Mamba, some 10 miles to the west. Both planes were destroyed, with their pilots and gunners. Since then, the enemy planes dared not come near to the monastery and always avoided flying over it on their bombing missions to the hinterland. Now is the bio. That winter, in the 11th month, President Lin Chen and the government sent upasakas Chu Yingguang and Zhang Zilian to the monastery, inviting me to the wartime capital of Chongqing to hold a prayer meeting for the welfare of the country. I left Nanhua on the 6th of the 11th month, and when I arrived at the sacred mountain of the Henshan in Hunan province, I offered incense at the monastery there and met Upasaka Shi Guozu, who had been sent by Marshal Li Jianshan to invite me to Guilin. On arrival, I stayed at Mount Yeya, where monks, nuns, male and female lay devotees came and asked to be disciples of mine. Next, when I reached Guizhou, I stayed at the Qianming monastery, where Abbot Guangmiao asked me to expound the Dharma. When I arrived in Chongqing again, I was met by government officials and the monastery's representatives. After calling on President Li Shan and Upasaka Dai, the chairman of the prayer meeting, we decided to hold 2 Dharma assemblies at the temple Xiyin and Huyan. My 104th year is 1943-44. In the first month, I performed rituals for the welfare of the country, which ended on the 26th day. President Lin Shan, General Chiang Kai-shek, Minister Dai, General Ho, and others high officials invite me, one after the other, to vegetarian meals. General Chiang Kai-shek inquired about the Dharma in detail, listening the various points on materialism and idealism, as well as the doctrine of Christianity. I replied to his inquiry in a letter. I then expounded the Dharma at the temples of Xiyin and Huayan, where my lectures were recorded by my attendant Wei Yin. In the 3rd month, I returned to the Nanhua monastery to build a stupa for the ashes of dead disciples. When the ground was dug up, we found 4 empty coffins, each of them 16 feet in length, and also black tiles, 8 inches square, with impressions of bird, animals, and astrological symbols, but bearing no date. In the 6th month, we opened the Vinaya school for novices and free school for poor children of the locality. The building of the stupa was completed in the winter. Stop here. So again, struck me the engagement of Master Xu Yun in this really challenging and difficult time of the Second War, the occupation of Japanese soldiers. And it's interesting, this note of his, the editor of this biography, then Master Xu Yun recognized that Japanese planes, bombers are coming and potentially can drop the bomb, and actually they dropped. For the 6th Patriarch Monastery, what he did, sent out everyone for the safe place and sit in meditation. This is a kind of response in the real danger and potential violence. And it's reminding me the important encounter with Venerable Master Xianhua, who came here to US in 1962. And less than 6 months left when he came here to San Francisco, we have in the world very potential huge conflict, right? The missile crisis in Cuba in 1962, when the world was just maybe 1 inch from the nuclear war. So what Venerable Master Hua did, he decided to fast. And he was fasting for 35 days. Just drink the water. And and just has read some note about this in the local newspaper in San Francisco, in Chinatown. So they reported that Master Hua started 4 a.m. the day, put his precept sash and sit in meditation straightly from whole day and fast. And continue doing this for 35 days. Of course, not difficult to say how this affect the whole situation, but in terms of the missile Cuba crisis, definitely, unfortunately, the both sides, Soviets and Americans, find some peaceful solution for this, and the spiritual support or some clear response was there from Master Hua. And also, like we see it from Master Shuyun, it's not just do kind of a spiritual practices. He met politicians, generals, was quietly engaged, even established the schools, like free school in the monastery, create the Vinaya school for novices. So a lot of kind of groundwork, and it's interesting that he put a lot of effort to rebuild the stupas in the monasteries, because I think those places are meant to be, as we call this, sanctuary of peace or oasis of peace, when people can find refuge not just from potential bombs or maybe for hunger or physical kind of threat, but this is the spiritual refuge, important spiritual refuge. And right now we are in the very interesting, difficult situation, right? Because of COVID, many monasteries, many temples are not accessible. But maybe this is a good time to cultivating what really make these monasteries peaceful places. And I think the first important foundation of the Bodhimanda, of place of transformation, are the precepts. The precepts, the main kind of the message of precepts is ahimsa, not create any violence, for killing, from taking what is not given, harming in many different ways others. So I think that the one of the responses for ourselves when the world faces the different crises is to look it in our heart and maintain these precepts. And we have precepts in our heart. We are always in the monastery, right? Our home can be sacred space, or our heart is the place of refuge or the sanctuary of peace. And we can bring this anywhere we go. We bring this peace with us and positively influence all the environment. Maybe I stop here, and we can do now 3 steps, 1 bow. Okay, so check out the phone.